Mr. Packer's in next door and at Silks with Mr. Williams. That's
Yeah.
Kerry Packer
Kerry
and
and
Lloyd
Lloyd.
Williams. They'd like you to come in. Well, there we go. That's the end of the night, everybody. And the amount of business, tourism and economic impact driven by Indians wanting to come to Australia, subsequent the India versus Pakistan game in the World Cup. Last year, for the first time ever, Australia-India at the MCG surpassed any records for Ashes off the back of it because of your dad's impact. And this is not me because I was involved in it.
Welcome to the Warnes Way podcast, Eddie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Jackson, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I look around and so many great memories. Your father's baggy green over there. Wow, I should genuflect.
Yeah.
I've got a bottle of his SW wine. I was having a look around before. And the book and all these other things here, mate. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. I've tried to make it a good mix of me and Dad, and I also want it to feel like quite homey and cozy.
What's that?
I
think you've done a great job. I love the
Thank you.
desk, and you were saying before that this is where Dad's office used to be, and he's got lots of things around here, lots of great memories. But as you say, I love the fact that downstairs you've got your motorbike and his motorbike and the memories of things you did together.
Yeah, so this was his old warehouse. You know, he used to call it the man cave. He used to have all of his poker nights here. He used to store all of his furniture here. We've actually got our first live audience. Tunners is in the crowd, and Tunners has been here a few times.
Well, the poker nights I got invited to, and I dodged. I thought they were a bit dangerous.
Yeah,
and,
you probably saved a lot of money.
And I was lucky, I think, doing breakfast radio in those days. And I was a little bit busy, so I stayed out of it.
Yeah, you had the excuses, I've got to be up early.
Exactly.
Can't make it. But Fev's a good example of that. He's still a very committed player. He gets up early, 4, 5 a.m, I think, when he does his
he finishes
radios.
at 9 o'clock, though. I used to start at 9. But
Well, the reason we're talking about your busy schedule, because this is how I wanted to intro it.
Yeah.
For example, when I started the podcast, I wanted to reach out to you because I looked at you as a very, very good quality person, a quality guest, and a good friend of Dad's.
Yeah.
And when I messaged you straight away saying, "Hey Eddie, thinking of starting a podcast, would you like to come on?" You replied in a matter of minutes, and you said, "Yes, would love to." Put me in touch with your PA, absolute legend, organised the date, spoke to her on the phone, and then fast forward 3 months later, we're here. But the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because you reminded me of Dad that you were booked 3 months in advance. This is Dad's old calendars he used to have.
Wow. Yeah,
and he used to be a year booked in advance. Have you got one of these?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
For the whole year and everything?
It's pitched out and a bit like your dad in that there's sort of set plays in there. So he had cricket seasons and on air. So for me, always, and this has been my life, there's football season.
Yeah.
There's, when I was doing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that was blocked in. Breakfast radio was there. And people, it was funny, sometimes a few friends would resent the fact that I'd say, I'd love to catch up. Can you give my EA a call? Yeah. And even my family sometimes used to get a bit, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And until I said, that's what Carla does. Carla, my wife, books in. And that once it's in the diary, then it's right.
That's right.
But if you sort of talk to me, it goes in one ear. I'm busy doing something, and I don't want things falling through the cracks. So, very much like Shane. You're a long way out on these things, and particularly when you, like in the days like footy show, there was Thursday night. Then you'd call Friday night football, and you'd have the weekend on Triple M football back in the day, or when Channel 9 had it, et cetera, et cetera. Then Collingwood, so then there was there's board meetings, there's all these things. So, that's the only way it can happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pick up I'd look at it some days and go, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I've got to start at 5:30 in the morning and last...
Finish at 11 o'clock or something.
11 o'clock at night, yeah.
So when do you reckon that, like as soon as your life started getting busy and chaotic, when do you reckon that moment was? Could you identify?
Probably, it's going to sound strange, when I won a scholarship in grade 6 to the other side of town. And suddenly I was on the commute from Broadmeadows to Windsor.
Working in media?
No, this is going to school.
Oh, this is going to school in year 6. Okay.
Year 7.
Yeah.
So, and then I started writing for the papers and doing stats when I was in what we used to call Form 2, so year 8.
Yeah,
I started
13, 14 years old.
Yeah. But what would happen is I'd play Saturday morning, then put my brother's suit on over the top and go to the press, with my press pass, and go in. So suddenly I was working I was playing footy in the morning, working at the VFL in the afternoon, and then even those early days I'd play a second game for my local team, St Dominic's in Broadmeadows, on the Sunday, and then do your homework. And so it's probably, you know what, it's only now that you ask that question, I think, for the first time. So I was probably working almost 7 days a week from the time I was
13, 14 years old.
But when I say working, everything was an adventure. Yeah. Playing football wasn't
doing
working.
something you love,
mate. That was everything. Studying, I had to, I was into my books and things, so that was okay. But then working at the footy, and in the press box, so you're sitting. I remember meeting a young girl one day in the press box when I was about 15, and she just started as a cadet. Her name was Caroline Wilson.
Oh yeah.
And and I used to, work with Mike Sheehan, and the great Alf Brown was still around in those days, and all these great, Ron Carter at the age, names you haven't heard of, who were the superstars of media in those days. And then I got to meet a few of the TV people along the journey. And so it was one of those things. I always thought I'd be a newspaper reporter, and then suddenly I got the job at got an interview at Channel 10 when I was in year 12, and my whole life changed from there.
So footy's always been a part of your identity, and it's something you've loved to do.
Footy was my identity even as a little boy. So Broadmeadows was, the only place I knew. I grew up there, so that's all I knew. But what I loved, it was a melting pot. It had a lot of Australians, generational Australians, who had traditionally lived in places like Collingwood. And as those places, they weren't gentrifying so much, but the manufacturing got put out to Broadmeadows, so the jobs were out there. Yep. So a lot of people came out who'd lived in the inner city. And then, of course, you had all the migrants coming in, of which we were migrants. So my mum and dad came out in 1958. My elder brother and sister were born over there.
Yeah.
And
where did they come from, sorry?
My father's from Glasgow in Scotland.
Oh, Scotland.
Yep. And my mother's from Roscommon in Ireland.
Oh,
and
no way.
They met in England after World War II.
Oh, wow.
So they came out in 1958, and then I was born in 1964, and my younger sister was born in 1969. So we had two foreigners and two Aussies.
That's so good.
In our house. And
have you played the Dunhill before?
I haven't. No, I'm not good enough golfer to play.
Not good enough?
That's okay. Things. But I did play St Andrews.
Oh, you've played? Okay.
Last year, your mate Xander, my son,
yes,
studied at St Andrews for 6 months.
Wow.
And we went
Such
over.
a beautiful place.
Oh, it's unbelievable. He was playing every other day.
Was he? So does he beat you when it comes to golf?
No one beats me.
No one beats you. You got certain rules that make sure.
The only person who beats me at golf is me.
You?
I'm no good. But I love playing. I just haven't had the time. I'm the best member you can have. I pay up and don't show up.
Yeah.
But I want to get into it now, and I've actually got to get it in my life. But Xander was good, and Joe, my son, plays as well now. He plays a lot in America because, when you're a footballer, you play a lot of golf.
Yeah.
But Xander, in his inimitable fashion, became mates with the starter at St Andrews and got in, and suddenly was, part of the St Andrews Golf Club at St Andrews University.
That's
so I think
cool.
he played about 18. I think he says he played 18 times on the old course and went to 20 classes. So
wow,
he nearly got the balance right.
Yeah, he nearly got the perfect routine of waking up, playing 18, and then going to class.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
the day we played, he had a couple of his mates, and it was one of those ones we were lined up to play. We turned up, and the course was frozen, and we couldn't play. So we missed our time, and the rules, as you know, over there is doesn't matter what happens, you miss, you're out. Yeah. So we're waiting there, hoping, it looks pretty good now. No, you're not on.
Yeah.
So Xander kept going over, and then the guy said, right, okay, you're on, and you play till it's dark, and then you finish.
Wow.
And of course, it was getting dark at 4:30.
Yeah, it gets dark very early there.
And as luck would have it, as we hit to the 18th, it
still sunny.
It was dark by that stage.
It was pitch black.
So we putted out in the dark, drove with still a little glimpse of light.
Yeah.
But Xander had to leave after about 6 holes to go into a class that he had to be in.
Yeah. And then came back after.
And then came back and played the last 4.
That is so good.
Last 3 or something.
So is he able to walk where he was staying, able to walk between the course and his classes?
Across the road. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had the whole thing, and you know what St Andrews is like. It's a small village, and he just loved it. So it was great to go over and,
feel like you're at home.
Well,
it's sort of.
Well, for him as well, because it connected him back to his Scottishness.
Yeah.
My dad, Mcguire, the Irish into Scotland, but and into Glasgow, but he was in the coal mines when he was a 12-year-old. And his big career break, my dad, was to go to World War II, which got him out of the coal mines. And then, of course, his real life break was to come to Australia, which he and Mum never, ever, ever stopped telling us how lucky we were that we landed here.
That's so fascinating. How and why did they decide to pick Australia out of everywhere?
A couple of things. One, Dad saw it on a newsreel of the Boxing Day Test back in Scotland when it was about 12 foot of snow. My mother's brothers came out to Australia and started a road making. In fact, Williams Road in Toorak and around that area, they actually put the roads in.
Wow.
And so they had come out and they sponsored my mum and dad to come out. And so that's why we ended up in Melbourne, because they were here. And then, oddly enough, they went back and Mum and Dad were sort of left here. So I grew up with I had cousins all around the world, but no one here.
Do you know what year that Boxing Day Test was that they saw?
Well, I'll have to check it out. It might have been that and the Olympics around, so it's 56-ish. So
Donald Bradman's not there then at that time.
Oh, no, okay. Miles later.
So this is after Donald Bradman.
No, this is after the war and everything. Yeah, so no, Dad, it's probably the 56 Olympics and around that time. And as I said, I think Mum's brothers might have had to get as far away from England as they possibly could after maybe a possible altercation between the Irish and the English at a pub one night.
Yeah.
So there was all that sort of thing happening. And, I mean, it was a pretty brutal time in those days. And you couldn't get a job in Scotland if you're a Catholic and things like that. Yeah. So they got out. Ultimately, there was a time my mother was going down to get a pint of milk. My brother was 9 months old, and Mum went down to the street, and the lady 3 doors up was a Protestant woman, which, big deal, Catholic Protestant, and she ran and grabbed Mum, pulled her off the street and said, "What are you doing, Bridie? You got a green cardigan on, they'll kill you today." And Mum said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "It's Orange Walk Day," which is the sectarian highlight of the calendar, if you like. And at that stage, Mum, who was from the south, didn't quite realise what all that was about. Of it. And she said, "Right, that's it." She went up to the post office and got the forms that day and signed them, and away we went.
And they've never looked back to go back there? Or
No, I took my mum and dad back after 42 years.
Yeah.
And my mother said to me, I said to her at the end of it, "What do you think?" And I did we'll go back in style, and we stayed at the Ritz in London and did all that sort of stuff. And she said something that I didn't expect, but actually was a better answer than I could have hoped for. And she said, I said, "What do you think of all that?" It was the first time she'd been on a plane and all that type of thing. She said, I said, "What's your major takeaway, your take out of that?" And she said, "That I didn't waste the last 42 years.
Oh, perfect. So Australia was the place to be.
And she said, she always said to me the happiest day of her life was stepping foot into Australia, into Melbourne. And she said, and the second happiest day of her life was stepping back into Australia.
Stepping back into.
Yeah. Wow. So I went, there you go. That's a good result. So, she didn't live the high life here. I mean, she worked in the factories out in Broadmeadows and, concrete commission house and all that sort of stuff. But we built a home, and for her, this was the home for her and my dad and, all of us. And Australia's just given us every opportunity you could possibly have.
That's why they used to call it the lucky country, didn't they?
That's one of the great misnomers, Jackson, is that Donald Horne's book, The Lucky Country, was him actually saying we were dumb luck.
Yeah.
He was actually being facetious. He was saying we're actually a stupid country who lives off the luck of having, we sort of fluke our way through things. And I think that's why over the journey, so many migrants have done well, because they come here under, circumstances that have been, destroying of their soul and their life where they've been. They come out here and suddenly, as my dad said, the sun on his back and this amazing country, and got a job, got off the boat on Easter Sunday or Easter Monday, and got a job on the Tuesday and worked there at the Board of Works until he retired. So it to your point, it has been very lucky to us. And at the same time, I think sometimes, we have to be careful in this country. We don't talk ourselves down and go looking for problems, and that's obviously something that's quite pertinent at the moment, where we don't want – I always thought with my dad and a lot of his friends, the people that he left Scotland to get away from because of the sectarianism over there, when he comes to Australia, his best 3 mates were Freemasons, guys he was trying to get away from. They're all good pals. Yeah. It's like in the Suez Canal, they threw all the bigotry away and said, I'm not going to the other side of the world to replicate what I'm leaving. And I think we need to get a little bit more of that action happening in Australia right now, than rather than bring, the troubles from the other side of the world. We don't need to import troubles in Australia.
Yeah.
This should be the place where you come to leave all that behind.
Have you ever thought about ever running for Mayor of Melbourne or some sort of political figure after you've all well said and done with sport?
No,
Never?
I couldn't think of anything worse than being the Mayor of Melbourne. No, if I was ever going to have a go, I was going to have a go at the big job, not the mayor.
So you'd go for Prime Minister?
When I was a kid, yeah. I mean, I wrote a policy speech when I was in grade 4.
That's so good.
Got an A for it because I gave the nuns a pay rise.
So
even then I was pork barrelling even then.
Yeah.
But no, to me, there have been opportunities. I've been asked on numerous occasions, both sides of politics actually, both the Libs and the ALP. But I did the Republic in the referendum and the Constitutional Convention, of which actually I was the number one elected delegate. People may not realise that if we had a vote for the president, I was it.
Yeah.
But I got up there, and I also realised when I got up there that the entire Constitutional Convention, other than a few people up there, they were all on the political journey, and I really would struggle in the system of politics, of the factionism, and all the things that go on in there. It's not like you can just turn up, be elected, and suddenly you're making decisions. You have to fit into the parliamentary process, the caucus in the ALP, the factions in the Liberal Party, which are now writ large for everybody to see. And I think the frustration of that would have made it really hard. And even also, you even saw even people like, even Malcolm Turnbull, he ended up being Prime Minister, but he was seen to have been parachuted in. So we've got this ridiculous situation at the moment where you can't really get in unless you've been handing out how-to-vote cards since you were 15 and have come through either, being a lawyer and a young Liberal, or a young Labor and, working in the branches and working for the unions, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got to be a bit careful, I think, in Australia at the moment that the talent pool is shrinking. There should be a lot more looking as they used to have in the United States, where people had successful careers and then wanted to give back to society and were able to come in various ways into the political process. Right now, you look at the political process and you don't want to go near it. And even if you did, they don't want you.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
And, we see that a lot around the place. We've got to be careful in Australia, I think, at the moment. Even in the AFL with the commission is becoming, they're all starting to look the same. We need to have differing voices, differing circumstances and ideas. This should be the ideas factory. Stop saying if it's not broken, don't fix it. Maybe occasionally you've got to break it and fix it better.
Yeah.
And keep stretching and how can we make things better? What do we do to make things happen? That's what I'm about. And
well, that was actually going to be my next thing I'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered running for AFL CEO? To be
no.
Never?
For footy, for me, I mean, I love what I do in the media.
Yeah.
And look, probably, I'd be one of the more lucky people in the world of football who didn't actually play.
Yeah. And just with how much you're involved.
Yeah,
and
I've made a career of it, and
yeah.
To become the president of Collingwood, that was never on my dance card. And then suddenly it sort of happened. It all happened in a matter of, a month, where suddenly I'm hosting the footy show and doing everything else. I'm a reporter. Life's going beautifully. And then the Pies had fallen into a malaise at that stage, and it happened almost in hyperspeed, where people came to me, can you help? And I was actually helping out behind the scenes and trying to help with sponsorships and things like that.
At Collingwood already, before?
No, well, I wasn't. I was sort of out but helping. But I used to help North Melbourne, and used to host all the Essendon things and Hawthorn. I was doing that everywhere. And then suddenly the Pies, I was trying to get them sponsors, and they lost a sponsor. There's a mob called Viatel took over, and I went to the Copeland Trophy. I was hosting the Copeland Trophy this particular year, and I found out that this Viatel thing had fallen over, and as a result, the club was in big trouble. And they went to London, and while everyone was in London, behind the scenes, we started to find out just how bad the club was in where it was, and and then suddenly it started to take off from there, and people started to approach me, and by the next October, I was the president.
Wow. So
I hadn't planned on. That was nowhere near anything to do with, because I was doing the media. I mean, the footy show was massive.
Yeah. So when you were doing all your reporting and journalism, like as a kid all growing up, that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to work in some sort of footy media, but being a president of a football club was never.
No, well, until that stage, no one had ever done it from where the position I was coming in. I mean, Ron Casey.
Was it usually always ex-players and then
ex-players and business people? Ron Casey ran Channel 7, so I sort of actually took over Collingwood before I ran Channel 9. But it was it just wasn't there. And you've got to remember, at that stage I was 33, so I was pretty young. When I took over Collingwood, Carla, my wife, was 27, 28 years of age. She was younger than half the players, and so there was all those things that just made it. In my mind, you took over as a president when you're, my age now.
Yeah. So did you feel any sort of judgment or any sort of, the other presidents aren't going to approve of me, I'm a bit too young, maybe not experienced?
There was all that, but that didn't worry me so much. I thought the interesting thing, that the media would think this was a great celebration. I thought that, because whenever the media... That was it, yeah. So normally when the media are sitting outside the tribunal, they're always bitching and moaning, including myself at the time, about how we're, underappreciated by the football world. The players should be giving us more interviews. They should be doing this. They should be doing that. They don't get it. Without the media, there's no football. Without football, there's no media.
Yep.
And that's where there's always this. And, the old saying that if somebody wants a story out there, it's called PR. If they don't want it out, it's called news. And that's always the battle between breaking stories, making stories happen, and what people actually want to come out. So for me, I thought this would be great. The first person, as I said, first generation Australian, no family connection to Collingwood, didn't play for them. My only connection was because of my media career. But I remember walking in the first day and, certain journalists almost spitting on me walking into a meeting because they thought I was going to get all the stories, and then all that stuff about conflict of interest came about. That wasn't a conflict of interest. That was a convergence of jealousy in my book. And people still, for a long time, for nearly my entire career at Collingwood, I still copped all that along the journey. And I say, well, point to something that was actually a conflict.
Yeah.
And I'll cop it. Whereas these days, I look at the conflict, I look at, journos who've got the same manager as players, pumping up players, and all sorts of different manifestations of conflict. And
do you think social media has changed how players can sort of build their own brands? And do you think there's a lot less pressure on the players to work with the media and they sort of do their own thing?
Well, it's evolving at the moment, Jackson. They need to work with the media because that's where the money still is. You can run your own show over the side, but in the meantime, if you want to get paid $2 million a year to play football, you're getting that from Foxtel and Channel 7.
Yeah. So would Foxtel, Channel 7, Channel 9, all of the main broadcasters that follow AFL that have all the shows, if you're a player sort of retiring now or soon, that's where you'd be looking to sort of get into?
A combination of.
But
you're looking at people like Daniel Gorringe, for example. Probably wouldn't have got a gig anywhere. Doesn't need to. He's running his own show and doing really well. You're doing it right now.
Trying to. A few episodes in.
Yeah, but that's it. But that's where you start. I mean, we all start off as, I start off getting the coffee. And that's where it's at. So it is. It's we're in this new phase. Where does it go to? The AI explosion is, to me, is almost going from cave painting to colour television. That's where it's going to be. And so, we're all anticipating these things come a lot quicker. But, 1956, television came to Australia. 1976, roughly, was when colour television came to Australia. 1986, the internet probably started to kick in. So, it's almost 30 years.
Yeah, we've made more advancements in technology in like the last 10, 15 years than we have in 150.
Yeah.
And so if we're using AI now with people putting faces and voices and people not knowing what's real and what's not, what's it going to be in 10 to 15 years?
Exactly. And then what will end up happening, I think, is that, like always in these situations, people will want to come back to the trusted voice. Now, hopefully there'll still be a trusted voice, because I think traditional media are too much sometimes chasing the clicks and going down the rabbit hole, the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it'll evolve. I mean, it's an amazing situation. I mean, I look back now and I'm starting to sound old because I remember when I started at Channel 10, I was on a typewriter. I remember watching, they put a fax machine in, and I remember looking at wonder as the paper came out. How does it work?
Yeah, how does that work?
We had telex machines still back in those days. We were shooting on film and all these different things. So I've been able to watch all this change and, broadcast television going into internet, online, podcasts, all these types of things. But it's like anything in life. Darwin's theory of evolution is not the survival of the fittest, as people think. It's
survival of the best.
No, it's who adapts best survives, and that's where people have got to be. Yeah. You can never be. I always say to people, don't become jaded. I see people get a job that they've always wanted, and then 6 weeks later they're complaining that the season's going too long, or it's cold in July and it's hard and all that sort of stuff. Boo-hoo.
Yeah.
Everything you ever do in life, it's like your dad. Yeah, he was a natural and all the rest of it, but to go from being a good natural kid down at at the South Australian Institute of Sport or Institute of Cricket to being who he is, had to go the next bit and really do. You can have natural ability to a degree, but sooner or later when you get the pointy end, everyone's as good.
Yeah.
Then you've got to go the next bit. That becomes a profession. So it goes from being a pastime and a hobby to being a profession. So you've got to keep, I still think you've got to keep that childlike sense of love. And I've tried to do that after I finished up at Collingwood. I decided I wasn't going to become bitter about anything, not worry about it if you didn't get invited to things or, whatever.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to the football and have my childlike love of watching the footy first up and particularly watching Collingwood run onto the ground and go back to when I was 12 and think, why did I love the Pies when I was a little boy and just enjoy that again.
And what you're describing to me sounds like you wanted to have fun. And one thing that Dad always used to say when he was a cricketer, when he was young, when he was getting older, when he was in the commentary box, he said, you always have to have fun because no matter what you're doing, when you're having fun, good things will happen.
Yeah.
And now whether that would be he was having fun on the cricket pitch, so he'd try a new ball, or he was having fun in the commentary box, so he might say something stupid, but then that's actually the magic of
That's
sport.
the magic, but you've got to be thinking. You've got to leave the cave to see what's outside. You've got to take that next step. And, I think too often we have a lot of analysis these days, which is great. I mean, I love all that. But at the same time, we don't want to be turning football or cricket or anything else into a tax audit. There's got to be the fun of it.
Well, Dad used to always mention spirit of the game.
Spirit of the game.
Spirit of the game.
But also, people muck up.
Mistakes happen.
Second chance, third chance. People used to say to me, how many chances do you give a bloke at, footy? I go, as many as it takes.
Yeah.
If we can get them through and, it's always funny seeing the level of expectation on sports people as opposed to people in commercial life. Yeah. I used to always laugh when you get sponsors wanting to put behavioural contracts, about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old.
Is that to try and say like they need to be home by a certain time or they can't be?
No, as if somebody mucked up, they could pull the sponsorship. So somebody gets done for drink driving, they pull the sponsorship.
Yeah, okay.
And at one stage, we had a situation with the TAC. Now, granted, it's the Transport Accident Commission and the whole idea is not to speed, and we had a couple of blokes do it. Until I found out that 75%, I think, of the TAC had all been done for speeding or drink driving or something, including the minister in charge at that stage.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you can't go down that road, they said, pardon the pun.
It's like,
there's a fair bit of hypocrisy in those things. You need to have them in place because you don't want it to be a free-for-all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think people love standing on the moral high ground and casting dispersions at people.
Yeah. Do you think there's too much media or pressure on sports people now, especially young ones? No. Do you think there should be more?
No, not more.
It's just the same.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like there's things in life you can't control. You get up, doesn't matter if you want the sun to rise in the west, it's going to rise in the east. Go with it. And that's what it is. And we know now that once upon a time there used to be one footy show on a Thursday night and you might have the Sunday footy show on a Sunday. That was it. Now there's a footy channel, for example. There's footy classified. Our company does Sunday footy show, footy furnace, Monday classified, Tuesday classified, 7 days a week on the news, the Today Show, etc. That's just Channel 9. Over at 7, they've got the same sort of things. Fox Footy's got a whole channel. The Herald Sun know that this is they're into it with pages of football. It's fantastic. Everybody, there's jobs for people and all sorts, but that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And if you want to step up and, if we want to keep our game being relevant, we've got to be in it.
Yeah.
Because if you're not filling up the pages, somebody else will.
When the COVID bubble happened and there was some players saying we can't travel unless we bring our family or our kids, I just remember sort of saying to Dad, could you imagine what would have happened if someone in the Australian squad back in your day had said that? And he's like, mate, we did, and we just got told to sort of, come on, mate, toughen up sort of thing.
Yeah. It wasn't, but that's what it was. It was all that sort of stuff. I mean, you go back to Kerry Packer's World Series cricket. That happened because they were getting, at one stage I think Greg Chappell, as captain of Australia, was getting paid less than the curator who was actually mowing the grass.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dad's first check for Australia when he debuted was $2,000 a year. Yeah. I think it was something like that. He was making nearly a similar amount when he was delivering mattresses with 40 winks.
Yeah.
Like, it was just crazy to think that.
Well, I as president of Collingwood, I was always big on, people used to say, do we pay them too much? I said, pay them what we can make. It's up to us to make more money. Yeah. And, the TV rights in my time have gone from, in 1987, 88, when football was broke, when it was still the VFL, still getting big crowds at the grand final was still full and all that sort of stuff. But the TV rights that year was $750,000 for the year. Mm. I think it's $2.5 million a game these days.
Yeah, well, I think they just sold for $2.5 billion or something.
Yeah,
didn't
but
they?
This was on the ABC, and the ABC did it because there was a keep off the grass agreement between 7, 9, and 10, and then ultimately Broadcom came in and bought it, which was almost it was basically set up by the AFL to try and break that cartel. And then Christopher Skase came along and he bought the football because Channel 7 was dead, and away we went. And now, of course, it's the backbone of, it's the biggest production in Australia, that and rugby league and the cricket. So, in those days, when I first started Channel 10, I couldn't get the editor. I'd get the last editor and the last crew because it was only sport. By the time I finished 10 years later at Channel 10 and we started getting things going and the footy show started, everyone wanted to work in sport, and it just took off. And, it's not that long ago. In those days, Craig Kelly was playing at Collingwood. Ricky Nixon was a PE teacher at Carey Grammar. Ricky's had a different life, but in that middle period, he really kicked it off and it took off, and the footy show happened. And you had Rex Hunt on 3AW, suddenly the radio, and I started Triple M football. So suddenly there was a different demographic listening to the radio here, and it all took off.
Yeah.
Shows, even the breakfast shows that I were on had a lot of sport, a lot of football, grill team, etc. Sam Newman took off, and in amongst all that came SKW.
Yes.
And a breath of fresh air, because cricket was starting to disappear itself for all the things you said. It didn't have anything that was really show busy to go with it, other than what Kerry Packer did with, back in the day with World Series cricket and one day cricket and colour TV and more cameras, and David Hill bringing show business. It's no fluke that David Hill was and John Cornell were the brains behind
John Cornell
how it looked. John Cornell writes Crocodile Dundee, and works with Paul Hogan to bring this cultural icon. David Hill ends up producing the Oscars.
Wow.
And is in the Hall of Fame of the NFL, the EPL, it should be in the AFL and Cricket Australia because of what he was able to do. So, again, you had these really great visionaries who understood show business.
Yeah.
And understood that these guys should be getting a slice of the action.
Yeah. Was that the first time you had met Dad then, when it was starting at Channel 9 with Worldwide Sports?
So the old Wide Water Sports was, when did I meet your dad? No, I remember him coming through playing for Victoria. And
so before he debuted in Australia.
You go into a news story and do things in those days. And I remember reading about him when he came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Who's this bloke, Shane Warne. And then, found out that he was mates of Barks, because Trevor Barker was one of my best mates. And, Craig Davenport and all those guys. And so Shane was a little bit younger than me when he was coming through in that first bit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he starts to do things, and he's on the radio and we'd catch up with each other. And, I remember him when he met your mother, Simone. I knew Simone before I knew your dad.
Wow. Was that at the golf course? I think she remember.
No, even before that.
Promo
Simone,
work? Was she
was doing promo work. But
the F1
but
and stuff
she
like
was,
that?
she was, I remember knowing your mum, she was working at the Saloon Bar, which was owned by Jason Dunstall and the guys. Yeah. And we were friends. We'd see each other. Hello, how are you? And she'd look after us and give us a drink card or something.
Yeah.
But I knew Simone, and then I remember when they met at the golf course, and I heard that they were starting to date each other, and I thought, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Because Simone's such a good girl, and I think I've heard good things about Shane, and then I met Shane. I'd started to meet Shane at that stage, but no, I knew your mum before I knew your dad.
Oh, well,
as far as knowing them. And then, of course, the thing with your dad and I, over the years, he had up and down relationships with people in the media, and we were lucky that we had only up.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we had a great dinner. I was hosting an IMG tennis night during the Australian Open at the temporary casino before they opened the big casino in Melbourne at Crown. And I was hosting it, and anyway, I get my coat pulled. I'm up on stage, and I'm doing something here at the moment. One of the waiters came and said, Mr. Packer's in next door and at Silks with Mr. Williams. That's Kerry Packer and Lloyd Williams. They'd like you to come in. Well, there we go. That's the end of the night, everybody. And then I go, and your dad was there. And so we sat down, and we had a masterclass with Kerry Packer and Lloyd Williams and Shane, who was coming through as an Australian player at that stage, and I was at 9, obviously, at that stage. But so we were sort of the young guys on the go. And then later on in that dinner, Adam Gilchrist came in, Steve Waugh, I think, came in, and I'm sitting there, not wanting to even eat. I thought I was only invited for 5 minutes until Kerry said, "You're going to eat something, son, or you're going to go? You're going to piss off?" I said, "No, I'm right." Texting under the table saying, "I think I'll be home late," and we had a great night. And we walked out onto the main floor, and of course Lloyd and Kerry weren't able to play cards, so Kerry made me his deputy. So I'm playing. I've got Kerry Packer. Take a card. Take a card. And it was just an amazing night, and it was one of those ones that Shane and I really bonded. We knew each other and got on well and all that sort of stuff, but he's travelling and I'm doing my thing, and then we really bonded from that moment because we had spent a night in this rare air.
No, Dad always spoke so highly of you, and what I was saying before, like he always looked at you as the one person that he knew you worked as hard, if not harder than him. Like he always used to say that all the time. He's, "Oh, look, there's Eddie doing this, there's Eddie doing that." Always spoke so highly of you, Eddie.
And he always took my call and would come on, and if he was flogging his book or something, of course, we'd look after him. And then he came on the footy show, and then he and Sam became great golfing friends.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to play golf, I don't get the time to do so. So I sort of wasn't in his poker group or his golf group, but we knew each other really well. And then the one when we really got to work together was with the Melbourne Stars.
Yes.
I was the president, and
were you the president of the Stars when that started?
I formed it. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So that was 2012. Was that the first year or 2013?
Whatever it was. Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
12, I think. But
so were you president of Stars and Collingwood at the same time?
Yeah.
So you just had cricket and AFL just dominated.
That's why my diary looked the way it did.
Yes.
But I actually went and asked your dad. I said, "I want you to be the captain."
Oh, so you approached him. That was your idea for him to be.
Yeah.
Was he captain and coach as well of Stars, or was he just captain?
He was captain, and we got Ian Chappell to be the chairman of selectors, basically.
Yeah.
And we had other coaches in there, but Shane came in, and so it was interesting because Cricket Australia used to say to us, because they'd steal all our players going into the finals, it was almost like they're stitching us up, and I said, we're supposed to be the Melbourne Stars, not the Melbourne Spuds, and our home ground's the MCG. I know how to fill this because I would do it every other week with Collingwood, but we need to make this really big, and I think they sort of went in, like originally the Melbourne Stars, if you look at the first uniform, it was green with a big star. It was the Star of Pakistan because they wanted to sell it to Pakistani businessmen. And they then approached me, and I think, to be honest, they were a bit worried that they were going to muck it up, so they wanted to get a few people. Got me and James Brayshaw to do the Renegade, so they could probably blame us if it went to arse up. But I remember saying to them at the stage, you don't want to be bringing Pakistani businessmen into Australian sports.
Yeah.
I'll be the president, but I want to run it like a members club, like
how
Collingwood.
you do Collingwood.
Yeah. And ultimately, so the day when we got 85,000 in there was unbelievable. But
wow.
But the day your father I think your father really invented the Big Bash on the night that he called the McCullum.
Going to spit it in there fast.
And do all that. Yeah. And it was a very special occasion for me because he was wearing a black armband that night.
Oh, was he?
And it was for my father who'd passed that week. And, and Shane was great to me and came up and, and came at the Broadie to my dad's funeral. So when he ripped that one in and, when I went home that night, because I'm at the game, so I didn't hear any of this, and went home and watched it. And, it was...
How special is that?
It was very special.
He was always somebody that had time for everyone, and especially yourself.
He was fantastic. You know, and we had great time with the Stars, and Viv Richards came in. So we had, Ian Chappell, Viv Richards, Shane Warner. When I was putting together my boyhood idol list.
Yeah. Well, that's 2 of the 5 Wisden cricketers of the century. Yeah. With Viv Richards and Dad in there.
Yeah, and probably Ian Chappell could have got in as one of the Wisden captains of the century. Yeah. And so it was just amazing. So then there was all the other stuff, You're
on the board of the Shane Warne Foundation as well.
I was, yeah. And we did all that together. And then we had a lot of great times in London. Your dad would take me out and we'd go and do great things together. And then...
did he ever take you to a restaurant called Pizza Pomodoro?
He did.
He did?
He did indeed.
That was one of his favourite restaurants in London that he always took me, Brooke and Summer, our friends, always. He said, all right, if you're here for London, have to take you to a restaurant called Pizza Pomodoro.
Pizza Pomodoro, we went there and we went to a few other establishments as well and we just had great times together having a laugh. And see, your dad came on the footy show when we did it in London. And again, he's absolute peak.
At the peak.
So I rang and I said, mate, we're going to come over and do a show at the Theatre Royal. Would you be in?
Yeah.
Yep. No problem.
Yep.
For me and Sam and Trev Marmite. And we got Ian Botham was on, and we had
Beefy.
Ginger Spice, Jerry Halliwell. She was singing at one stage in a Collingwood, skimpy Collingwood top, and I'm doing push-ups and she's standing on my back. It was all the stupidity going on.
Yeah.
And
that's showbiz.
And the night before we went to Nobu, the Boris Becker Memorial cupboard was over there where he got the girl allegedly pregnant in there.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't allegedly pregnant, she got pregnant, but allegedly some sort of act happened in there. Yeah. And so Shane, and we're all there, and Sam, we're having the best night, and all these guys and fun, and Danny Minogue came in, and she came in, I reckon, out of just being polite because she was going to be on the show, and she thought she'd drop by and say hello. Anyway, 8 hours later when we finished in some nightclub that she and Warnie took us to, and we just had the great night, and then the next day we got up and did the show, and that was great. It was really good fun. It was the thing I loved about Shane was whenever you were there was serious conversation, but a lot of fun, just like what you said before. He could do the business, but he could do the show as well. He was the ultimate show business impresario.
Well, I've actually got a quote from when you did the opening monologue for the State Memorial, and I've got called him the greatest showman. Yeah. And that's what you pretty much just said then about Dad. But he was always just somebody that wanted to perform, but then deep down he always had time for his mates, always wanted to help people.
Well, it was an amazing time, obviously, and obviously sat down with you and your sisters and your grandparents and Helen Nolan and all the people around in planning the State Memorial. And it's probably worth telling this. I should tell you rather than say it to someone else. But when word came through that night that your father had passed, it was actually my son, Xander, who rang me up. He was out. And I get the phone call at, I don't know, whatever time it was 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said there's this story that Shane had passed. And then suddenly my phone started lighting up from overseas. So it's 2 in the morning. And you mentioned Luke Tunnicliffe was here before. So suddenly I sent him a text because he was great friends with your dad, and he was awake for some reason, or he woke up, and then he rang, and we ended up having about 6 or 7 guys on a group call as we just sat around and we couldn't believe it. So it was almost like a therapy session as all this unfolded. Anyway, the next day I received a call from the Premier of Victoria, Dan Andrews, and he said to me, "What do you think? We need to do a state
Something
funeral,
big.
don't we?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, we do." And he said, "Right, okay." And he said to me, "Can you pull it all together?" And I said, "All right, give me go away and do what you've got to do, and then come back with the writing instructions." And I said, "I've got a bit of an idea." And he rings back. By that stage, I thought, "Well, we've got to do it at the MCG." And but I said, "How big do you want this to be?" He said,
You said that to the Premier?
Yeah. And he said, "I want it to be what you think it should be."
Perfect response.
I said, "Right." I said, "Well, we'll do it. We won't go silly, but we'll do it properly."
Yeah.
And then away we went. Of course, we had the meetings with you and your sisters and tried to work it through. And as it turned out...
Just quietly as well before you continue, what you guys and everybody was able to do in such a short amount of time on such a big scale, I'm not sure if it's ever been done before anywhere else in the world, but for what you guys did that night on the MCG was the most perfect send-off for Dad, and the family couldn't be more grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I've only watched the State Memorial back once because it makes me quite upset.
Yeah.
But every time I bring up people and they say, "Oh, what's something I want to watch of Dad?" or I always say, just go and watch the State Memorial, because even though it's sad, you find out really who he is, because you're hearing from so many different people from so many different walks of life, and they all have things in common.
Yeah.
He was always very respectful. He was always great to his mates, always wanting to help, always really fun to be around, always positive.
Well, that was exactly, Jackson, what we were trying to achieve. We wanted to, obviously, amongst the tragedy, we also wanted to make sure that people knew who he was, that there was a nod. And I thought Sam Newman was fantastic, in what he didn't say, and just and his cricketing mates and Nasser Hussain and Broadie and all those guys. The English guys were fantastic, but it was quite amazing. Chris Martin.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a special human with eulogy.
He sent us the song that he did, which was good enough.
Yeah.
Then the next day he'd gone to somewhere else because he couldn't come back because he was in South America.
Yeah.
And he did something else. And then the night before, he's ramped it up again.
Yeah.
At the same time, Robbie Williams is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And Elton John's ringing me, and I knew Elton from over the years. In fact, he at one of his concerts, believe it or not, he did a tribute song to me and Carla and Shane and Simone.
Oh, how nice is that?
The four of us went backstage to meet.
So you were there at the concert.
So we went to the concert together, sitting next to each other, and we went backstage to see Elton. And I'd met Elton a few times, and in fact, he sang at James Packer's wedding, which I emceed, and so we sort of knew each other. And we went backstage, and it was great. We're talking about, he's asking about Collingwood. He was aware of Australian football because of St Kilda through Molly Meldrum, and knew Shane's love of St Kilda, and he's just a great sports person, former chairman of Watford, and loves his cricket and all that sort of stuff. So we had a great time. Anyway, we're out, and I remember being at Rod Laver Arena, and Elton's up there, and great concert. And in the middle of the concert, he says, "There's 4 people here tonight that I want to sing their song for."
Yeah.
I'm starting to think, well, there's 4 of us. Geez, wouldn't it be big if it was us? And suddenly he did. He said our names, and the whole looked at us. And, I don't get embarrassed easily, but I could feel the redness going. But anyway,
cheeks.
But back to the night itself. So they were unbelievable to do that. And I remember at the time people going, "Oh, these people can't come out," And people, I don't know, they thought it was going to be a concert. I said, no, this is a memorial, and we're able to do it. The thing for me that happened was, what day was it on? Was it on a Tuesday night?
March 4. Oh, the State Memorial?
It was on a Wednesday.
It was the 30th, yeah.
It was a Wednesday because there was a game on.
There was a game the night after.
And on the Sunday. So we had to get in and get out.
Yeah.
Because people said, "Oh, what about, it costs money. It cost $1 million. And it cost more than $1 million, I can tell you.
And I also say to the people that say that, like, Dad paid that in tenfold in tax.
Yeah, well, let me come back on that.
I like to think that Dad paid for it himself. That's how I...
Can I give you a bit more?
Yep.
He got shortchanged.
Yeah.
Right, let me get to this part, okay? Well, let me quickly say what it is. So, yes, he paid his taxes and all that sort of stuff, no problem. Plus everything else that he brought, okay? Warnie playing at the MCG. As I said, he was the guy who made 2020 in my book, You'll get plenty of people at Cricket Australia, get plenty of people in television. Warnie turned it into something spectacular.
Made it a spectacle.
And not only that, but you guys, you and your sisters and Elizabeth Hurley being in the super box, suddenly it was magic. I mean, instead of having park trundlers, basically, guys who were not even getting in Shield games playing, suddenly you had all these guys, and he got KP, Kevin Peterson, to play for us. All that stuff. That was Warnie. He did all that, So coming back to the point, though, when I spoke to the Premier about this at the time, I said, this is going to be nearly the biggest broadcast outside of the Olympics in the history of Australia.
Wow.
So we can't go into this half-baked. I said, we will do it in a way
as professional as possible.
And not be over the top.
Yeah,
like we wanted to do fireworks, and at that stage they said the stand had burned down, all that carry on was going on. I remember having the word speaking to you about we want to do it at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night, and originally you guys wanted to do it during the daytime, and I said no, I want the sun setting because I wanted to get the shot coming up the Yarra, and I wanted to have the welcome to country with the didgeridoo player on top of the stand with the sun setting in the west.
And there was something at 6:23 as well.
Yeah,
I remember
and all that symbolism, and then also, in that next phone call I got from the Premier, he said, he said, I've got one other thing. I said yes. I knew what he was going to say.
Yeah, was this about the stand?
The stand.
No way.
Yeah.
So was that his idea to have the stand?
It was a collective idea
of yourself.
I said yes before he said it. Yeah. As he was about to say it. We were both on the same wavelength.
Wow. So what did he say after you said yes?
He said yes. He said Shane Warne stand. I said yeah. I said yeah. And he said, do you think we can get it done in time to do? I said, mate, it doesn't matter if we have to put up a canvas thing. I said, so once I had that in my head.
That's so special because I remember when you were coming to the meetings to organise it all, you guys, you said, look, I've got a pretty cool, proposal for you guys if you would like it or not. And we said, oh, what is it? And you said, well, would you like to have a stand? And we said, what do you mean? And you're like, well, there can be a stand at the MCG called either the Shane Warne stand or Shane Warne stand or Shane SK Warne stand. Like what do you want? We're like, wow, that's such an amazing honour. Like, thank you.
Well, as again, Cos Cardone, Luke Tunnicliffe, all our team coming together. The protocol officer of the state of Victoria came in. Coming back to the point I wanted to make to you, though, was I went over as a guest of the Rajasthan Royals afterwards to India because it was such a big deal. Since that function, since we did that memorial at the MCG has become the number one cultural icon for Indians coming to Australia for the first time ever, surpassing the Sydney Opera House. And the amount of business, tourism and economic impact driven by Indians wanting to come to Australia, subsequently India versus Pakistan game in the World Cup. Last year, for the first time ever, Australia-India at the MCG surpassed any records for Ashes off the back of it because of your dad's impact. And this is not me because I was involved in it, but the advertisement and the solemnity and the connection between Shane Warne and the MCG has had an economic impact in the hundreds of millions of dollars. For $1 million investment, and remember, it costs you, $700,000 to do home and away episode or whatever it is. The footy show used to be, grand final footy show costs more than $1 million to put on. That's what it costs.
Yeah.
You had to bump in the stand. You've got the Prime Minister sitting there in the middle of a football ground. You've got the lights, you've got the satellites, you've got cameras, people, got everybody.
The stage, and then having to disassemble the stage, the
everything,
people working,
and get it
everything.
on, get it off. And, one thing, my prayer to your father was, mate, one more time, get the sunrise, get the sunset happening for me, and please don't let it rain. The funny thing for me was on that weekend, I tested positive to COVID. Yeah. And I'm sitting at home on my kitchen table, and generally I ad-lib a lot of stuff. And because this was such a big production, you need to hit the right things.
It has to be perfect.
So I sat down and wrote the whole funeral with the interview parts. Obviously, people did what they needed to do, but I remember writing it, and I was able to sit down and actually think about what your dad meant to me, sport, MCG, you, your sisters, parents, grandparents, everybody that was there. And I can tell you, it was as my son would say, somebody must have been peeling onions next to me through the course of the afternoon. But I also wrote it in case I couldn't come up, because if I couldn't have done it if I was still had the COVID. And I thought, if somebody comes in, they can at least read the script and have it. Yeah. Anyway, so we had all that fixed up, and thank God I actually I knew I was coming good, and on the Monday I was right. So I wrote on Sunday afternoon because we needed to get it. And you had to actually, with state funerals, you've got to put it through the protocol office because of state funeral. So they had to sort of.
And the protocol office is state government?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were on top of, the.
They have to know who's coming, who's talking, at what time.
Basically, what they're going to say, and because it's
the outline of everything.
Everything, and so I was able to give them the script of what it was and how it looked, and also we had to tell all the television stations how long it was going to go, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot in it in a big thing, and to me, it's it was the greatest honour of my career, and Ron Barassi later on as well, and these things, to be able to be trusted to do those type of things for people of significance. It really, I really go into myself. I go into myself. It's such an honour, and then the fact that I was sitting with you guys and going through all the emotion of everything that was going on around it, but then we were able to pull it together. And I just think, I was in London a year later, and people were pulling me up on the street, ask me, but it was a great thing. So you walk away, and for me, it was the last gift your dad gave me. It was the honour to be a spokesperson for him on that. And I've got to say, mate, when you and your two sisters and we put the light up there on the Shane Warne stand for the first time, it was pretty special.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have wanted anybody else to do it, Eddie. That's why, as soon as our first instinct when all this was happening, it was Eddie. Eddie would be the man to do it. That's why we got you to do the private funeral as well, and the state memorial. It was perfect. Dad, more importantly, Dad would have wanted you to do that.
Yeah. Well, look, again, the public one was there. Being invited to come to the private funeral as a guest was first off, and then again to have the honour to sort of MC and pull it together was something. So, but I really want you to understand that, because, we copped a bit a year later, and the guy who wrote the story was a young bloke, and he actually came up and apologised to me later on. I said, what do you...
Well, I remember just waking up one day, because every morning I always look up Shane Warne News. Yeah. Have some more water. I always look up Shane Warne News.
How does it work? I don't want to spill it all over the place. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
There you go. Oh, it's just straight up.
Yeah.
I got one of these in the office. You've got to take the top off.
No, all good.
Stooges everybody every time.
Yeah. No, they're a bit tricky. But no, I it's like a habit. Every morning I look up Shane Warne News, and then me, Brooke Summer, Mum, and I've done that ever since I got on the phone, just to see if there's something out there in the news, just to see what they're talking about with Dad. And I remember waking up one day and I saw that, and I'm just thinking, like, Dad never taught me to sort of engage or react to it. He's always just, because as soon as you react or engage with it, they'll just come back with more, and then you got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, that's why I think I called you that afternoon, and I'm sort of thinking, like, should I react or should I not? Because I'm thinking in my head, like, Dad would have paid this in 10 times with his tax. Like, he'd worked literally his entire life. Me, Brooke and Summer didn't get to spend a lot of time with him when he was playing, when he was working, because he was working, making money, and he had paid so much tax that I sort of looked at it in the way of, that's just Dad paying. That's Dad paying.
Yeah. But, even that though, I mean, don't worry about that, because he paid his tax, but it's the on top of. And as I just said, this year, and next year when the Indians come out, you can sit there and go, not only are they sitting in the Shane Warne stand, they're filling the Shane Warne stand.
Yeah.
And the economic impact, at a time when Australia was, and particularly the state of Victoria, were trying to open up diplomatic ties. And before that, remember, it was all the, cab drivers and this and that, and it was real angst in amongst all that. After the memorial to your father's life, it completely changed. Suddenly, I remember going to India and sitting down with Sanjog Gupta, who's the head of Star TV, who's now just been made CEO of the International Cricket Council. And Sanjog was fantastic, and we built up friendships and rapports and opened business doors for all sorts of different people. And it just suddenly everyone said, right, there is a connection here now. And the huge Indian diaspora in Victoria felt they were part of something.
Yeah.
And, for us, the pride we had was that, people, it's amazing how the media goes here. They go, oh, was there really 1 billion people watching it? I don't know. What do you reckon I'm going to count them? Yeah. But, geez, I know when I went to India, I walked down and they've been to India in my life, and they all came up to me. Yeah, and I'm walking around literally with my 2 boys and Carla, and we're playing cricket on every corner as almost like the cliche. It was even better than the cliche. Yeah. And they all knew. They'd all watched it. They said, are you, and then when they heard the stars and, Shane Warne, you're that guy. Yeah. And it was quite incredible. But, I'm on the board of Visit Victoria. I see the figures. So I'm not making this up, and it's not PR. Yeah. I see the figures. I saw the impact. And to the credit of the Victorian government, they did it because they believed that Shane had been an icon and was the people's prince. Yeah. And so full marks to them. I remember at the time talking, I think your sister wasn't a big rap for for Daniel Andrews at that stage. Yeah. So there was, it was right in the middle of all that caper, and whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. You got that one right. Yeah. But they took advice, and people like, all the people in your camp were great and had their say. And Luke Tunnicliffe again was the point man. He needed to be in there doing that, and then I could be sort of back over here doing what I was doing. Yeah. And then the state of Victoria rolled in, and in the end, they wrote the story. It cost $1 million. It would cost probably a bit more than that, but when you strip out what it costs, like not that I need to justify this, but we put money into it, which was no big deal. It was an honour, as I said. I wrote it, produced it, and hosted it. There was no charge there, But I'm not saying 3 cheers for me. What I'm saying is that if you actually did that show at full tote odds, it was 2.5, 3 million all day. MCG free of charge. The government putting things in, people working, getting paid. We had producers from our organisation working and editors and things who just did it.
You can't quite fathom actually how much work was put in probably, because I don't think it was. I think we decided we were doing the state memorial. It would have been maybe a week or so after Dad had passed. So that's let's say Dad passed on March 4. A week after that, March 11. We really only had 3 weeks, 20 days to organise from scratch to a stage on the MCG with everybody who was involved. Yeah. Getting all the seats, people flying in from all around the world, the timeline of what it's going to look like minute by minute.
And the other thing was, as I said, the Premier rang that day. I remember where I was sitting. I was sitting on my couch at home, just sort of half in a daze, and taking calls from all our friends. And the thing the first thing we said was, right, we've got to tread warily here. This is a
sensitive and
it's a grieving family. It's a tragedy. It's just happened. So we had to make sure that we got the timing right. And I remember, there was the meeting we had down at Jason's place, and everyone there, and your sister was on the phone, and everyone was quite rightly. It was no one quite knew where we were,
Well, at the time of trying to organise a state memorial, there was people going in and out of the room on the phones to people from Thailand trying to actually organise how to get Dad back. Like there was actually, I don't think people realise, but there was so much going in that month of March. Like to me personally, it actually feels like a blur. Yeah. Like it feels like one day. But what we were able to do in terms of getting Dad back from Thailand, back home safely, then having to organise a private funeral, then organising the state memorial, where Dad was going to be his resting place, who was taught, like there was so much that went involved into that month of March.
I remember that meeting, we're there, and everybody sort of stopping mid-sentence because the story came up on the television. Yeah. And I think at that stage it was, remember somebody tried to get into the car. And suddenly, so I'm sitting there sort of trying to take everybody through on an idea that evolved numerous times, knowing just how, everybody was just brokenhearted and completely fraught. And then this happens. And I'm watching it come up. I remember the TV was over there, and you guys were sitting on that side of the table. And I remember, I go, what next?
Yeah, I just remember every hour just refreshing my phone and there'd be something new, new detail.
But I looked across at you at one stage and I could just see your heart break. You know, and everyone in the room's just gone, oh no, you know, as some person tried to get in and we all twigged straight away, some idiot wanting to, you know, get a photo or whatever. And I just thought it was remarkable the way you guys got through. And, you know, as I said, to sit one out, one back, sort of watching it happen and then but everybody coming together. And I think what was great about it in the end, Jackson, was there was a great trust between everybody in the end. And I think why it worked so well was we actually were enveloped by the spirit of your dad.
Yeah, whenever we were stuck on a decision or what should we do, we always think, what would Dad want to do? What would he say? Yeah. And we all agreed on that, and that's how we were able to get to where we got to.
Yeah, and then the trick was to not make it. So some people turned on expecting it. I remember the amount of people who said to me, "Oh, I turned it on and sat on the arm of the couch and thought, oh, I'll watch the first 10 minutes of this, and you know, it's probably going to be like a sportsman's night, or is it, you know, whatever it is." And one of the things that we needed to do was. You've got because it's a state funeral, there are things you have to do. So you have the welcome to country, and we wanted to make that spectacular because we understood how proud Australian Shane was, but also his connection to Indigenous Australia and all the things he did. So for me, the sunset and the didgeridoo player up on the scoreboard coming down to the welcome to country that was done, and the guy who did that had an anecdote about your father. And then we deliberately went and got Greater Bradman to sing
How amazing is that
the national anthem because of the clear connection.
It was so fitting.
And she sings. So we had opening scenes, welcome to country. People talk about welcome to country. Well, if you do it with absolute symbolism and a connection between bringing people together, it's a pretty powerful thing. Yeah. And then you had Greater Bradman sing Advance Australia Fair. And that was before I even walked through. And then, we worked it so that Bernie was sitting exactly where he was, where he took the hat-trick ball. And, so it was a bit of theatrics and show business.
It was so special.
But we thought through all that stuff because of the connection.
The attention to detail was...
Yeah, well, you wanted... it's great having people in the audience, but if you can bring them into it and everybody having their say, and then ultimately to finish on that amazing scene with you and your sisters up in the stand, well, that was that.
Could you ever possibly fathom that we would have had over 1 billion people watch this? Because I remember Tunner saying when he was doing the live stream, he had Star India, every country was just asking if they could tap into the feed. Yep. And that's when we woke up the next morning, they said it's estimated over 1 billion people watched it live.
Well, once we sort of understood where it was all going, now, there's the media are pretty good at beating these things up, saying, X amount of people watch the Grand Prix, for example, but it might be just on the news, but that counts. So there was also the news around the world on everything, CNN around the world. And I went to America not long after, everyone knew about it. So the grandeur of it, we probably knew it was going to be big. How big, we weren't quite sure. You never know what the reaction's going to be. In Australia, don't forget, a number of the broadcasters didn't take the full feed around the country. Channel 7 did, and did really well accordingly. And I remember you and I have, Shane was no fan of Channel 7, and you saying there could be everywhere else except Channel 7. And the irony was they were the ones who actually did it around in the world. And I had to say to you, mate, here's the deal with the state funerals, everyone gets it who wants it. Anyway, it was huge. It was, and when you're hosting these things, you know when they're working, and because if they're not starting to work, your job is
you can feel the audience, you can feel the atmosphere.
We've got to pick up the pace here. We've got to get things. This is because what we wanted to make sure we didn't become overdone in any particular area.
So repeating yourself a bit too much.
Yeah, but you had the solemnity, and then we had the welcome to country, had all that, then the solemnity of it, and the opening that you said. I think was important that we actually said for the record what all these things. But then when we had, music, and we had, the cricketers coming on and telling stories, and so that it didn't become a tribute to Shane Warne that had no real connection to the Shane one we're talking about. A lot of people there becomes a mythology around it that they're either too good or whatever. Well, I think we found the balance as to Shane. So in the end, a lot of people said they didn't understand a lot of the things that your dad had done, whether it was the Shane Warne Foundation and all the things that happened there. Along the way, people criticised. The Shane Warne Foundation was subject to adverse publicity, which wasn't right. I was on it. I know what was going on. People didn't get it. It was a bit like, the actual memorial. Sometimes you've got to spend a bit of money to make the money. When there was criticism of the Warne Foundation that there's all this money. Well, if you're having a lunch dinner at Crown, they don't give it to you for free. The waiters are getting paid. You got to pay for the meat. You got to pay for the service. And that's it. That function itself might make a small margin, but you've got everybody else in the room and the auctions, and that's where you make the money. And don't forget the last thing that the Shane Warne Foundation did was to give a boy who dived off a pier and became a quadriplegic who was set to become Will Murray, who was set to become a superstar footballer, and we were able to remodel his house, and he has made the most of his life from there. And his mother and father, every time they see me, come up and give me a hug and thank the Shane Warne Foundation. So that's my full stop on the Shane Warne Foundation.
Yeah, and that's what I really hope people start to understand is I don't think they realise how many people Dad really helped. Like he helped so many people, whether it be in the Shane Warne Foundation or outside the cricketing world. He just wanted to help people. Well, he always wanted to give.
He
back.
wanted to keep going. He wanted to make it. I said to him, "Stop." I said, "Stop it there." And it was the last, X amount of money, hundreds of thousands, went into remodelling Will and pass around to a whole lot of other people. Right? So the last tranche of money that had been made by the foundation and largely, 99.9% through your father going down bowling in the nets to people and hosting and
memorabilia,
bringing around
items.
just sprinkling his gold dust around the place. That went to quietly, and people would be hearing this for the first time because that's the way we decided that would go as a board because that's what Shane wanted to do. And I said, stop there because these things have a lifespan of about 10 years anyway. Stop there and start again elsewhere. And he was able to do that. But, I always say, I remember speaking to one of the reporters who was doing the stories and, having a go and, long, in-depth, open book, aggressive to and fro, and because I was outraged by what was going on. Yeah. And in the end, I said, well done, congratulations. I think the guy won an award. I said, okay, good. Yeah. I said next year, there's $400,000 to $500,000 not going into the community next year because this has stopped. I said, so it doesn't matter how we're getting that money. Next year, in the community, there will be the best part of $500,000 recurring. Not happening. Yeah. And thanks.
I'd never seen Dad properly upset or frustrated. He was somebody that had such a good level head and he went through so much adversity and always came out the other end stronger. Yeah. But when all this stuff was getting under scrutiny, he was just so sad and disappointed because he's like, even when I'm trying to do good and even when I'm trying to help sick and underprivileged children, I'm still getting stick for it.
Well, and even a year after the memorial service, the Auditor General's report comes out and says the budget was $1 million, and the story was written as if I put $1 million in my pocket. And you go, what the hell is this?
That's not the case.
Come on, you're not that stupid, or are you? Yeah. Can you really be that stupid? Yeah. That these things will just magically appear. Yeah. And people working on these things. Yeah, I work for free. Yeah, so I should, but the cameraman can't. He's working and. All these other people. So anyway, that's the annoying part of. But look, in life, that's what happens. There's no universal, praise for anything. I mean, the only person that we are led to believe, if you believe in this, who didn't sin, they put on a cross. So don't expect them to be throwing rose petals in front of you for doing good deeds. So, and that's where it was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up,
yep,
I'd love to talk about Joe and Xander.
Yes.
How proud of you are you of Joe and Xander?
Look,
It's so cool what they're doing, by the way. I remember used to training with Joe down in Sorrento at the gym just a few years before he went to college.
And you were great to him because he was just getting into...
I remember he had a goal of trying to get to about, I think it was 140 kilo bench press, and we were benching around 115, 120 together.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to put on another 20 kilos on my bench before I go for one rep. I'm like, wow, if you can do that before you go. And I remember a few months later, he messaged me saying, I did it. Yeah. I'm like, mate, that is so cool.
Yeah, he did. He worked really hard, and he did 152 the other day.
Is that what he's up to now?
Yeah.
Wow.
But can I just say this? You won't know this, but when you were right into doing your bodybuilding and your technique and just going down there, but he also was a bit like yourself in that he had a famous father and he understands what you were going through, but you, more to the point, understood what he was going through, wanting to find his own path and do that sort of thing. And you did. You put him under your arm, under your wing, and you helped him with his technique. You spotting him, literally spotting him on the bench presses and doing that. And I remember him coming home saying, "Oh, Dad, Jackson Warren really helped me, and he's given me his number and said, give me a call." And that means so much to people.
Yeah.
And so subsequently, he went over. He went over as people don't realise. He went over as a walk-on. Right? So he had no scholarship. It was all care, no responsibility. In you come, and he was backing up Jesse Mirko for 12 months, and then the time came, and now he's he's a full-on athlete now, and he's
got a ring.
He's got the 3 rings, and he's got
3 rings now.
Yeah, well, they get the 2 bowl games, so the Cotton Bowl and the Rose Bowl, and then the championship ring.
Wow.
So he's like Liberace in the elders.
Did I see he donated one of the rings to Sorrento Hotel? Did I see that correctly?
He didn't donate it. He took it down.
So he's took it back though.
Yeah, he's got it back.
Okay.
And then of course he went into the Oval Office and met Donald Trump, the president, and got the presidential seal. So that's been great. So he's back in business. He wants to beat the team up north. Yeah, which is, I can't say Michigan, but that's the arch rivalry. And then they give them a gold pair of pants, which the significance was when they first beat Michigan for the first time, the coach had said to them, they're just like anybody else. They put on their pants one leg at a time. Yeah. So this becomes one of those great traditions. So if he can hold his spot in the team, beat Michigan and have another go at maybe collecting a few more rings, it could be quite sensational. But he's working really hard and loving it. But I'm proud of him, the way that your dad used to talk about you to me, and say how proud he was of everything you were doing, making your own way, doing those things, the person that you are with impeccable manners, which meant so much to your family, and of course I'm proud of Xander. Doing what he's doing, and living good lives and having a bit of fun. Yeah.
Do they ever get any stick when they go out in public or anything, or a tough time? Or they do?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for them and how to? Because Dad's given me so much advice, so I feel like I can handle negative situations really well. Yeah. But what would be some of your advice?
Look, it's one of those things. There's always going to be somebody. I always say if you're handing out gold bars in Burke Street, there's always somebody who complains they're too heavy. You can't satisfy everybody. So do your best, know who you are, keep your eyes open, that's where it's at. Don't take it personally. Criticism, you always look at it, and if it's valid, act upon it. And if it's not valid, don't worry about it. And these days with social media, don't worry about any of that stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, I get people having a crack at me on Twitter. I have a look at it sometimes for a laugh. Yeah. It doesn't worry me. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. And
exactly.
I know if I muck up. Yeah. Don't need other people to tell me.
Yeah, you're your own harshest critic. You've got so much confidence in your experience. But it's also, who you are.
People make things up. Yeah. I read something the other day. He did this one time. It didn't happen. Yeah. I met this. Met him somewhere. The amount of people who said they sat next to me at school. And a lot of them were girls. I go, you would have been very popular at All Boys Christian Brothers College, St Kilda. So you go with it, and but always I say to the boys, more people by a factor of probably 100 to 1 come up and are nice to you and enjoy what you've done and see the good of it. Other people are always going to be whinging.
Exactly. For how much negativity I used to see Dad get in the media and his whole life on the internet, social media, everywhere, I never once in person for 22 years of my life ever saw one negative interaction.
That's it.
I never saw anybody go up to his face and genuinely abuse him like they would abuse him online. I never ever saw it in my life.
No, you don't. And, people get online and that's just their thing. That's it's like...
unless he was on the cricket pitch, I'm sorry, and they've told him he's eaten all the sausage rolls. I've just thought maybe they used to abuse him on the cricket pitch. Yeah. But on the streets, on the streets. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's a feeling of endearment. Especially when the Poms are giving it to you. Yeah. We wish you English, all that
sort of stuff, and who ate all the pies, and all that stuff. That's the fun of the fair of sport.
Yeah,
we've got to be careful we
can't get rid of it.
Get rid of it, and I think sometimes there's a bit of too much sensitivity to things.
Definitely,
you got to let a few things roll. In life, otherwise you'll end up in the corner sucking your thumb, rocking up and down. You just got to get on with it. And you learn, but you learn. I mean, it's, when they have a go in the old days, it take a chip out of you every time, and the sense of this is just not right, and the outrage and things. And then, what am I doing?
Yeah,
doesn't it only changes a life if you allow it to and get on. The main thing is don't be a dickhead either. If you are acting the goat, you've got to pull your head in sometimes. And as I said, we all make mistakes. Sometimes they're positive mistakes. Sometimes it's a timing issue. Sometimes it's a misstep, a misword, but you don't even mean. Doesn't matter. They're all onto you these days. But I think you have a look at the body of work and you say, right, that's a, you want to be in front.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Eddie. But before we finish, I'd love to ask you one last question. Yes. Sorry, I've took up a lot of your time.
No, mate, don't worry about that.
I've got one more question I'd love to ask you. You said in the opening monologue of the State Memorial, opening one of the best contact books in the world for anyone that ever needed it. That's what you said about him. Yeah. Was there anybody you ever asked him to get in contact with, and what was it about if you did need someone? Because when you said that, I'm like, he does have a very good contacts list.
I saw him do it for everybody.
Yeah.
And that was my point. Probably I saw it firsthand with the Stars. And, and even that night when we went to the Elton John concert and, we go in for a Chinese dinner with Kerry Packer and Lloyd Williams.
Yeah.
And James Packer, a story that you've never heard probably before was we're at James Packer's wedding in the south of France. And at one stage, Tom Cruise was there, and Tom Cruise.
I actually remember seeing photos of this. I think Mum was there as well. We were going through photos, and I saw your photo of you, Tom Cruise, Dad, Mum, everybody. I think Carl Stefanovic was there too.
Carl was with us, Carlos. Yeah, so it was a good team.
Yeah,
and it was funny because all the Sydney people started at one stage. They went skinny dipping.
Yeah,
pretty all-star cast doing a bit of skinny dipping.
Yeah.
And all the Victorians, led by me and your dad, were standing up, and we actually were just having a beer watching these guys go, look at these clowns, there's probably paparazzi everywhere. And then we thought, the Murdochs are here, so it's not going to get in anywhere.
Yeah.
And we're having a laugh. But at one stage, your dad and I were having a beer with Tom Cruise and just chatting and having a lot of fun. And the old-fashioned rock and roll came up from Risky Business. And the whole room turned around and looked at Tom Cruise, and he did the slide across.
Yeah, did he?
Did the dance move.
That is awesome. The place
went berserk.
Yeah.
And he came back over and had a beer with us.
Oh, what a rock star.
He was sensational. Yeah. So when I think about that, but I saw your dad do it for everybody with the Shane Warne Foundation. If he was coming on a show, he'd always say, I know so-and-so, we'll get him, or, Mick Jagger's, I do. And it wasn't, I know Mick Jagger, aren't I great? It's, I know Mick Jagger, and you go, right, okay, you do.
Yeah.
And, recently I was at Lord's and I was in the chairman's function with, standing up there with Mark Nicholas, who's now the chairman.
The chairman.
Mate, Stephen Fry, Pat Cash was there, who's my old mate
from tennis.
Years ago. From, Cashy, good Melbourne boy, and Mick Jagger and Gil McLaughlin and Todd Greenberg from Cricket Australia now.
Some Titans of Australia.
But we're all just, we're just having
Everyone's
beer
mates.
going, wow, we're watching Australia playing South Africa in the World Test Championship, and we're just having a laugh. And that's where it was always with your dad. You could be. I mean, one of the great fun stories was he invited me round. I got a phone call. I'm down at Portsea one day, and he invites me round to his place. He said, I've got this chef, he's cooking. I said, oh, yeah, whatever.
Jerry from Morocco.
That was him.
This year. Yeah.
We had spaghetti bolognese.
Yes. You brought your kids as well there that
I brought
night.
Xander.
Yeah. That's when Summer had the hots for Xander.
That's
I remember
right.
that night. Yeah. I remember that night. Yeah.
So Xander came around, and there was a guy there, and we're talking, and he's got sounded like a bit of an English voice and all that stuff. He's a good guy. Yeah, this guy Ross, and we're talking, blah blah blah, and he says to me, "Oh, do you follow the EPL?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Who's your team?" I said, "Oh, well, normally I'm a Manchester United supporter." I said, "From back in the day when they got relegated back in the day." I said, "But I'm a Glasgow Celtic man."
Yes. This is back to your Irish-Scottish.
My father, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I buried my dad in his Glasgow Celtic tie.
Yeah.
And anyway, Ross says, I follow Celtic as well. I go, good on you, mate. Yeah, that's great. And then we start talking. And so I start giving Ross a bit of a history lesson on the great Glasgow Celtic. And I'm looking across, and your dad's got a strange look in his eye. And he's sort of smirking away.
Yeah.
Ross is nodding his head. At which stage your father said, "Yeah, Ross really does barrack for Celtic. His family own it."
Yeah, they own the team.
I said, "Well, you're not Dermot Desmond." Desmond. Yeah, Dermot Desmond.
Yeah,
said,
Dermot.
And of course, Ross spoke beautifully at your father's private funeral. And we've become friends. And believe it or not, I think I spoke earlier about being at St Andrews with Xander.
Yeah.
While we were there, the Dunhill was on. And
you saw him there with Michael Vaughan and...
Well, I saw it up on the scoreboard on the leaderboard.
Was that the year Dermot won it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was last year. So I'm looking up and seeing Desmond. So I text Ross and I said, "You're not at St Andrews, are you?" He said, "Yeah, we're at the hotel, which is at the start of the 18th."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I'm in the bar with my
the
son."
Jigger. That's what it's called, isn't it? The Jigger.
Down there on level with the green. He said, "Oh, come up." I went up, had dinner with him and his father, and
how nice is that?
I was able to bore him about Celtic all night again.
Yeah,
but
that's so cool.
But again, that's what I used to. That was. I think I described also. I might have used it in the memorial. The gold dust that your dad sprinkled on everybody. So suddenly, Ross Desmond is a friend. Dermot's a friend. They've invited me. The unfulfilled sporting ambition of my life is to go and see Celtic and Rangers play at Parkhead.
Yeah,
I've followed every Celtic Rangers game since I was 3.
Wow,
and I haven't been there yet.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It's a bit like saying I haven't been to see Collingwood play.
Yeah,
I barracked for Celtic before I knew of Collingwood.
Maybe that's the next thing you have to do with Xander and Joe is to go over there with Ross and watch a game. I'll tag along if there's a spare seat.
Mate, you come every time, okay?
I'll tag along.
Yeah, we'll sing the songs and away we go.
Exactly. But thank you, Eddie, so much for coming on. Again, sorry if it took up too much of your time.
Don't say that, mate.
Thank you, Tunners, for sitting in the crowd for however long that was. Appreciate your patience.
He left the room so we could actually give him a big rap about the memorial.
Yeah, you missed the best part when we were talking about you for a good 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, all good. Thank you so much,
Good luck to you,
Eddie.
mate. Can I just say this as well? I've been interviewed by a lot of people over the journey, mate. That's as good an interview I've ever been involved in.
Thank you, Eddie. I've filmed around 11 so far, so fingers crossed with a bit of consistency and a bit of advice from you guys on how to launch it properly. Hopefully it'll be a success.
Mate, it'll be a success because you're a success and you do a great job.
Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate it.